morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. As a board member of BEBRF, I want to thank each and every one of you, whether you're a presenter, a physician, a patient, a family member helping out. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart that this is a great organization, and thank you for your time. We only have so many days and minutes and hours in our lives, so coming here and spending some of those with us is a real tribute to the organization, and hopefully we can say something that will help you out a little bit. When Charlene first asked me to speak a year ago, I said, boy, a room full of these talented physicians and blepharospasm patients. I'm not sure they want to listen to a lawyer on a Saturday morning of all times, but I'm grateful you're here, and hopefully I can share a few things with you. Let's see if I can. F5. How about if I escape out of that, or will it? Don't want to jump anything. Go back. Do you think it'll? He said reverse there. There we go. So the bottom line with Social Security disability, I've been practicing for about 18 years in Beaumont. And I've done approximately 3,000 hearings in front of federal judges. And so I've seen probably 150 to 180 different judges and their style and what they have to think about disability and the whole process. But the bottom line with every disability case is, the question to consider is, do your vision problems affect you or keep you from working a 40-hour work week on a consistent and regular basis? And blepharospasm is one of those things that, they just don't see much of. Out of those 3,000 cases I've done over the last 18 years, I've probably had 10 or less actual blepharospasm cases that have gone to a hearing in front of a Social Security judge. And so we've got to better educate our judges and our Social Security staff on how to handle these kind of cases. And I know this is the bottom line with my talk is, can you as an individual out here can you sustain a 40-hour work week? That's what we're dealing with. Now there's specific listings that I'm going to go over in a minute or two, and I promise to get you out before lunch. So Denise and I may have a real short question and answer session, but with Social Security, you've got to have an application going. First of all, you can go online and file a disability claim. You can go to the Social Security office and file a disability claim, or you can find a disability attorney to help you file the application and go from there. At my office, we take people at all stages. If they come in and we find that they have a serious condition and we think that we could win that at a hearing in front of a judge, then we'll take the case that day and even help them file the application. But here's the thing is, when you file your application here in Texas, and I've got an office in Louisiana and also have a small office in Las Vegas. Each of those states have a place called Disability Determination Services that they send your application to. Here in Texas, it goes to Austin, where there's 600 examiners who review your application. Many of these examiners right out of high school have some short training, and they're given a job. You don't have to have a college education to work there. You don't have to be a nurse. You don't have to have a medical background. They put you through some training, and you are deciding disability cases at the initial application. It's unbelievable, and that's why so many people get denied at the first stage. Well, the second stage is a reconsideration in Texas. In Texas, you can get the reconsideration. Next door in Louisiana, it goes straight from your initial application to a hearing in front of a judge. And so it's a big jump there. But at the reconsideration level in Texas, sometimes they'll send you out to a doctor. But guess what? It's not a specialist. They've probably never heard of blepharospasm. Quite often, the doctors who are willing to take on these cases, your appointment's on a Saturday in Beaumont. It's at a chiropractor's office, and it is with an MD, but they've usually been out of school maybe 1 year. They're not a specialist. It's generally an internist. And so it's just not fair for people that have these severe vision problems. And I'm not saying these aren't sharp people coming out of medical school, but they're just not geared up for the disability side. And then finally, if you get denied at the reconsideration level, you're going to jump across to, you're going to have a hearing in front of a Social Security judge. In the U.S., there's 1,600 Social Security judges out there who decide your cases. In the Houston area, there's 2 offices. There's about 26 or 28 judges that will decide your case. Some of them approve 5% of the cases, some of them approve 65%, but that's your range. So boy, depending on which judge you get, makes a huge determination. Even if you have some of the greatest letters out there, you have some of the best medical records, some judges have made up their mind before you even walk in the room, and that's the sad part. But I try to get beyond that. This is the Social Security Bible that we follow. It's about 2 inches thick. It's called the Code of Federal Regulations. It has all the ins and outs, the medical terms, the legal terms that we have to follow for doing a Social Security case. I meant to mention earlier, who here in this room has filed for Social Security disability? So we've got 12, 15. How many of you were denied the first time you filed? About 10 or 12 of the 15. So very common. Don't be totally frustrated they turn you down. It's just one of their rubber stamps, and they say, you know, if you think your problem's that bad, you'll file an appeal, or you'll get an attorney, or you'll come back in front of a judge. So, but the Code of Federal Regulations is what we follow. Now, the biggest challenge I see with judges is they don't know hardly anything about vision problems. When a judge is hired by Social Security, they basically have to be an attorney for 7 years. They go to they have to pass a series of tests in Washington, D.C., and then they go for 4 to 5 weeks of training how to become a judge. And all of a sudden, they're a medical expert on all these conditions, and that's the big challenge. I narrowed it down. I would assume that these judges that are coming out that are deciding a real life and death situation for patients. I'm not saying Blepharospasm is a life or death situation, but if you have a cardiac problem or a liver problem or what have you, my guess is they get 2 weeks of training maximum on medical conditions, and Blepharospasm and vision problems, they might get 2 to 4 hours total in their career, and they're there to decide your case. And that's the challenge. So we as attorneys and as members of the community and the Blepharospasm community, we've got to figure out a way to educate these judges and educate the staff. And there's certain ways to do that. There's 5 steps to disability. I'm going to run through them real quick. A year ago, I did a newsletter, and you'll see my article there, and I cover these 5 steps. But in disability, the first step, are you currently working? If you're making more than $1,220 a month, then that's a step 1 denial. They're saying basically you can't make any money or else in order to get disability. The one exception is for people with blindness disorders. If you're statutorily blind at $2,200 or less, then they will bump up the amount that you can get to $2,040, but that's still a very small threshold. SSI purposes, that's a supplemental security income, that's even a much lower threshold. In Texas, if you make more than $750 a month, you're not eligible for SSI. And so those are 2 disability programs. And I know I'm moving through some of this fairly quickly. The second step is, do you have a severe impairment? Well, boy, if you have Blepharospasm or dystonia, you're dealing with a severe impairment. If everyone in here, if we listed from 1 to 100 on your severity, you'd be all over the board. And so what we've got to do is convince these judges that you have a severe impairment. That's a pretty low threshold for Social Security purposes. Now, step 3 is where I'm going to spend most of my time, the Social Security listings. This is 1 to 14 listings of impairments. These are the medical impairments that a judge will learn about in those 2 weeks of training. And 2.0 is where the vision listings come into play. Dr. Jankovic gave a fantastic talk on the neurological side. They have, let me switch to that one. Down here at 11.0, it says neurological disorders. But they focus so much on the upper and lower extremities that they don't even come around even thinking about eye problems. And so that's what we're dealing with on that. Here's the 2.0 listings for vision. There's only 3 of them, and so they're focused on loss of central visual acuity, contraction of the visual field in the better eye, and then 2.04 is loss of visual efficiency or visual impairment. And blepharospasm used to be listed right in the front of the book under 2.0 subsection B. And I go back and look at some of my old books, and blepharospasm, I wonder if the next click. So here's 2013 Code of Federal Regulations versus 2018. And I just quoted here, blepharospasm was specifically mentioned in the 2013 code. And a couple of, and I shorten this up, but it says, this was their response. Blepharospasm generally responds to therapy. However, if therapy is not effective, we will consider how the involuntary closure of your eyelids affects your ability to maintain visual functioning over time. And I know that's a little bit shortened, but in 2017 or 18, it just disappeared. And I'm gonna take that on as a little bit of a project as a board member, and I'm gonna write back to Washington, D.C. and find out why did it disappear, because we have a huge group here with our organization that is suffering from this disorder. And I'm going to find out if there's a chance of getting that put back in there, because it was nice to turn to the Code of Federal Regulations and say, hey, Judge so-and-so, blepharospasm is mentioned specifically in the Code of Federal Regulations. When they took it out, the judges have nothing to refer to now. And so like I said, they update these listings about every 5 or 10 years. So they come around, some medical board comes around and tries to figure out what's going on. So if you don't meet 2.02, 03, or 04, then what is a judge supposed to do? Well, a judge has to determine how severe your problem is. And one thing they do is there's something called meeting or equaling the listing. Let's see. And if you meet or equal the listing, then that's the black and white, line by line part of the listing. If you don't meet it, then a physician that you're going to can say your problem equals that listing. And it's called a medical equivalency. But one thing they look at is how off task are you during the workday? And as it says here, one question to think about is your blepharospasm condition keeping you off task 2 or 3 minutes per hour, or is it 20 or 30 minutes per hour? And most employers, they're paying for you to be at work, to do your job, day in and day out, hour by hour. And so if we can show through physicians' letters or through a medical source statement that I'm going to show you in a minute, if you're off 15-20% of the workday, you're going to get replaced most likely. There's a few skills out there. There's a few jobs that have some flexibility, but I talked to a sweet lady from the Woodlands here last night, and she said when she takes her Botox, her eyes are closed for a week. And then it takes a week or two after that, 2 weeks out of the 4 weeks, her eyes are basically closed. That is a severe impairment that should be granted benefits. I know she's in the process of getting those benefits, so I wish you well. Here's a medical source statement. I know it's the full page, and I think it's going to cut down here in a minute, but I'm going to put this on the BEBRF website so that you guys could download it. Any of you filing for Social Security disability, there's a great physician letter sample in the information, and I highly recommend you go onto the website. When I was getting ready for this presentation, blepharospasm.org, if you go to the, let's see, I thought I wrote it down here. There is a specific area for disability on there, and Barbara Benton has done a lot of work on there. Blepharospasm, who here has ordered or asked to have one of the disability packets sent to them? Here's a big fan right here.
Huge, it's awesome. I haven't been able to use it yet. I thought it was going to be a little packet, but it's like plastic bound, packed with information.
Sure. And all you have to do is make a call or an email to Charlene or Angel, and they'll get that sent out to you. It gives, I looked through it and I said, well, I couldn't do much better than that, because it's just very detailed. It has a sample letter that you could present to your physician, see if he would fill that out. It's a team effort, folks, between our doctors and yourselves, taking pictures of when your blepharospasm may be affecting you, relaying that to your doctor so that they'll put them in the medical notes. But this medical source statement, let's see, I thought I broke it down into two. Yeah. on my other jump drive. I'm sorry, I broke it in two so it'd be bigger. But basically what it's saying is it actually talks about what is blepharospasm, so that when we hand this to the judge, he gets educated a little bit. I've tried to keep it to one page because I want to respect these physicians. They're very busy. They don't want to fill out a 9-page form for you. They want to keep it to one page if they can. And so that's why I put it into one page, but it tells a real brief, it talks about how blepharospasm affects you. And is it 5% of the day, 25% of the day, 75% of the day? That's something your doctor can just check a box off quite rapidly. And then at the bottom here, and once again, I apologize that it's not bigger, it asks, do you, as the physician of this patient, do you feel this individual can sustain a 40-hour work week based on his or her problems? And so then I've got 3 lines for a comment section for the doctor if he wants to make any last-minute any comments there. So, and then a signature there. But the bottom line is getting information from our physicians if we can, and getting it in front of that judge before the hearing. I highly recommend, if you can, to hire a disability law firm, and I'm not giving a plug to lawyers or anything, but these judges are all attorneys. Some of them have practiced in the area. If you go in there without an attorney versus an attorney, your percentages are going down to win your case. And attorneys in the disability area, they don't charge any fees up front. They only get paid if you get paid. And so it's a win-win situation in the sense that your attorney, if he knows he's going to have to win this case to get paid, he's going to dig in a little deeper. But with blepharospasm and dystonia problems, it's vital that you get him any additional information. I've handed stuff about blepharospasm right to the judge right as the hearing was starting so that he could just read through it briefly, 1 or 2 pages. And anything we can do to help out there. So if you don't meet the exact listings of 2.02 to 2.04, then they go to step 4, which says, hey, are your problems severe enough that you can't go back and do your past relevant work? And what that's saying is you have skills over a 15-year period. Can you go back and do that? And if the judge thinks you can do your past relevant work, then your case is over and he thinks you can go back to work. But then they finally go to step 5 that says, is there any other work in the national economy where you can work? Do your skills as a pipe fitter, your skills as a paralegal, or skills as a whatever your profession is, if they think you can do other work, then they may find that you're not disabled. And so it's our biggest bottom line, as I mentioned earlier, is can you sustain a 40-hour work week on a consistent and regular basis? I know that sounds so simple and so, one sentence, but it really boils down to that. And so with the help of good doctors that have spoken to us today and through the help of BEBRF, I guarantee you that packet will make a difference in your disability case. I'll have my information on there too. I've had a number of people come up to me at this conference saying, hey, thanks for talking to me on the phone. I'm happy to talk to any of you on the phone, no matter what state you work in, and I can try and put you in contact with a disability attorney. But I'm going to end right there. If you had any questions, we can take questions till noon, and then I'll be here for lunch, so feel free to come up and talk to me. Happy to do it.